Hello lads and lasses, and welcome back to another episode of KSP2. Last time I did a perfect first launch and showed you guys how to complete about 3 or 4 different quests. You can get close to 300 to 400 science points, if I remember correctly. We managed to get through the entire first phase. This one, I'm going to be showing you how to do a second perfect first launch. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be close to. So we're going to go through a couple different quests. The first one is going to be Moon or Bust. So with that, we're going to get an apoapsis less than 2,400 kilometers and a periapsis greater than 60. Now, once we do that, a couple other quests are going to pop up in our tabs, in our primary and in a secondary tab that pops up. One of those is going to be to land on the moon, which we are actually going to complete with this. Then another one is going to be basically to return. And then we're going to have a couple others that we're going to complete. That there's going to be a monument that shows up on the Mun, and you can kind of complete that one, but there's a lot of other signs that we're actually going to pick up from the Mun. In total, we're going to get close to 1,000 signs just from stuff on the Mun, and then we're going to get close to about 300 to 400 signs just from quests, maybe even more depending on if we get lucky with the placement of the Mun monument. So let's go ahead and dive in. I've already built a vehicle and I've tested it for this purposes just to make sure it can do what we want it to do. All right, so if we go into the VAB, I'll show you what I've done. Now, this is the vehicle that I first built. The only difference is that I had a singular tank like this instead of a double tank as I do now. The reason I added the second tank is because it didn't reduce the thrust to weight ratio as much, and so I decided that just having two would be better. It gives us more time on the Mun, so that way we can do certain we can go to different places and see more stuff on the Mun. The last thing that I want to change is actually going to be the placement of these. You want to make sure, I do 8 just because I like having a lot. You want to make sure that when they're extended, they go past the very tip of this. If you have them too tall, then you'll be resting on the actual thruster, and they're not going to be where they need to be. All right, so let's kind of go over this vehicle real quick. Now, from the science that we got from the last time, our perfect first launch, we unlocked a lot of these things. So if we go down into the engines, we would have had unlocked the solid fuel boosters, and we're using 6 of these in order to get us the thrust to weight ratio in the first stage that we want. Now, when it comes to staging, we set these up on decouplers, which again we got from the science. So we did the 6, then the decouplers, and then the main engine. Now, the big reason for this is that the 6 is going to get us into orbit, then we're going to decouple and use the main engine. However, I've tested this. I actually want to use the main engine while I'm using these solid fuel thrusters, because if you just use the solid fuel, you're not going to get into enough orbit, because this secondary stage that we have actually doesn't have enough thrust to weight ratio to get us to where we need to be by itself. It gets you can do it, it's just not going to be as efficient of a launch. Now, this second stage, this entire center rocket, will actually get us to the Mun and get us in orbit around the Mun as well. So it's going to basically do everything that it needs to do. And then the last and final stage is basically just the lander and the flight return home. Now, when you return home, we'll go over all of this when we get to it. But basically, to return home, you want to make sure that you have about 1,000 to 1,500 worth of delta V left, and that's just change in velocity. You need close to about 450 to 600 delta V to escape the Mun's sphere of influence, and then you need a good amount of thrust to get back into a degraded orbit, to get into a basically to re-enter into Kerbal's atmosphere. So we're going to go ahead and run with this, and the staging is pretty simple. Just the first rockets, then the breakaway when these solid fuel boosters are gone, and then you move on to the next one, and then finally the last one. Now on here, some of the things we have is, you can actually check under here, see if I can grab this. We put an ablator, a heat shield. So if we go into thermal, we put on a heat shield. We also put on some batteries just to give us the wind, because we will be going to the dark side of the Mun at some points, and that's going to give us the energy that we need to get through it. We're also using the solar panels and some of the antennae that we got. Now, the antennae I put on there just as kind of like a backup. In case we're not able to get the science back, we can at least what is it, communicate or, relay the information back. Now, we also have the Science Lab Junior, which gives us a lot more science that we can do. And then last but not least, we are using the single seat lander can, which works wonders. And we're actually using 3 different parachutes. We got the radial mount parachutes, and then we have the top mount parachute. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and launch this, and you can see the total delta V is 9,540 meters a second. Now, if I revert to the VAB real quick, I just want to show something that I didn't think of until I clicked that button. So one of the things that KSP2, and I think KSP had, I didn't play KSP. I played, okay, I shouldn't say it. I played KSP a little, but not a lot. I've played KSP2 way more than I've played KSP1, so I'm only slightly familiar with KSP. So if we take a look, they've got the trip planner in here. Now, if we go round trip and we go from Kerbal to the Mun, you can see it's going to take us about 10,240 delta V. So you can plan your trips like this. This actually isn't correct. The return delta V needed is not correct because it says that it's going to go from Moon surface to Mun low orbit to Mun intercept to Kerbal low orbit. Now, again, this isn't correct because this isn't taking into account the fact that we don't burn our delta V basically to get out of, or to, because this is to basically take into account that we're escaping the atmosphere again, but we're not. We're just re-entering the atmosphere and letting the atmosphere slow us down. We're not using fuel to re-enter. So these delta V's are a little off. It's better if you do a one-way round trip. If you have enough, plus close to double, you definitely have enough to get there. Let's go ahead and launch again. Just gonna go through this, and then we're just gonna go ahead and launch. And it's gonna be the same process that we always do. Let's go ahead and skip the countdown because we don't need it. And again, we're just gonna go right into the map because I know everything's fine, and we'll just go through the same process. We'll catch up to where we get to things that are different. Actually, one thing you can do is start doing research because you have the Science Lab Junior, and so some new research will pop up, and you can just click this research button, and it'll automatically do it for you. Now, once those thrusters are used, go ahead and pop them off and run your other thruster, your main guy. You want to make sure that your staging is done pretty much exact. So as you can see, our surface velocity is actually going down because, like I said, this stage isn't enough alone to get you to where you need to go. We were basically just using it as a way to get us enough velocity to get us into space so then we can get that delta V required. So we're being a little inefficient with the way we're doing things, but we could have taken some weight off to give us that perfect thrust ratio, but we didn't really lose that much velocity, and we didn't really waste that much delta V, so I'm not that worried about it. Now we're in a stable orbit of 70,000 meters or 70 kilometers. So we're going to go ahead and set up a maneuver plan. And now a maneuver plan is something that really helps you figure out what you're trying to do. And if you're new to KSP or KSP2, these, go ahead and, if I can get it out of my, head, go ahead and you left click on your orbit path, create a new maneuver plan, then you can left click it and you can mess with it. Now, a maneuver plan lets you see what you're going to do before you actually do it. That way you can set up a really efficient path and you can know if you're going to perfectly manage to get that orbit, which I almost never do. So anything that's locked, go ahead and unlock it. And you can unlock things by hovering over it and just right clicking it. So I got pretty much a perfect entry. What we're going to do is set up a periapsis as close as possible to the Mun, just because when it's set up as close as possible, it gives us the ability to, basically, we're going to use the gravity to need less of a burn to create a better apoapsis. So I don't want it to be that close, just I would like to have a slightly higher periapsis, just for my own peace of mind. So we're going to go about 40,000 is what I usually do. And I didn't expect to get it pretty much spot on first time, but we managed to. Now I'm just trying to reduce the amount of delta V that we use, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to just stick with what we have. It's pretty much perfect, and I'm fine with that. We've actually had a really good run. So what you're going to do is an SAS control, go ahead and hit this button. This is maneuver. You have stability off, maneuver, then you have target and anti-target. So one thing you can do is when you set up this first orbit, right click on what you're trying to go to. So the MUN, hit set target, and it'll show you the different points that you're intersecting at. Now this number 1 and number 2 is because we're leaving and then intersecting this again. So it already realizes that we're intersecting the first time, so it doesn't count that. It automatically just goes to that other loop that we have. If I had this set up in a different way, so if I was to take this off, it would give us a first orbit that was really close together, and we wouldn't have that. Now I'm not going to well, actually, I can get back to where I was, so let's go ahead and show that real quick. Go and move this out. What we're going to show is if I increase this, see it has 1 and 1. That's because we're already intersecting the MUN, so it's not going to show us the secondary one. Again, we're going to go back to 40,000. Piece of mutt, that's where I want to be. And it's doing weird things with our path because we're intersecting at a secondary time when we leave it the first time. All right, so once you have that, you're going to wait for this to hit the maneuver. Then once you hit the maneuver, you're going to go ahead and warp to the maneuver point. You do want to make sure that you're on the maneuver point first before you hit warp to maneuver. Otherwise, when you warp to maneuver, your nav ball will kind of go all over the place, and you'll be looking somewhere else other than the maneuver point. Now, the great thing about maneuvers is it tells you exactly how much required delta V you need. We have 1356, we need 860. Then it's going to tell us to start burn in. We're going to start it in 7 minutes, and stop it in 1 minute. So we're going to burn for a total of 1 minute and 6 seconds. All right. So we're going to go ahead and warp to the maneuver point. You can see it's speeding it up for us, speeding up the game time. And it's going to go until there's about 30 seconds left. Right there. And we can speed it up a little more. You can press the greater than and less than signs. Or you can also just click on these yourself. Alright. So once we're, right on target, we're going to go ahead and hit the Z key. And Z key maxes out the burn. 2, 1, Z. So Z will max out the burn. We're going to go ahead and speed up the game. So that way we can reduce the amount of, real world time that we have to wait. And you can see in the nav ball that we're sticking to the maneuver point. All right, we're going to go ahead and slow it down 2 times and then 1 times at 10 seconds. That's how I work. And then we're going to hit the X key. X key cancels out everything. So 4, 3, 2, 1, X. All right. And we pretty much did that spot on. You can see our new periapsis is 71,000. So what we can do is actually just hit the Shift key, X key, and do that really quickly, and it'll get you a good periapsis. So kind of ease it in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click on a random point that's after we exit. You can see this is entering, this is exiting, and right before the moon periapsis. So what we're going to do is then go into a retrograde burn. Takes a really long time for us to get there. Just doesn't have the maneuverability that we'd like. It's a giant thing, and we don't have any of the stuff that we need. We can also do the research. I forgot to do the research for outside of here, like the high orbit of Kerbal. But that's fine. We can catch it on the way back, assuming that we go back. We did the research for high orbit of the moon. The MUN. Now it's going to say things like MUN, high orbit, highlands. That doesn't matter. If you're in high orbit or low orbit, the next part, highlands, doesn't matter. That only matters for when you're actually touched down on the planet. So there's highlands, there's craters, then there's the mare eye, and I think there's one or two other spots, but I haven't found them all. I in my other game, my actual playthrough, you can watch it. I think we just explored the Mun and found some of the science locations. So I don't know all of them. I think we did miss like one or two. I think there is like a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere, and then I think there's like ravines or something. I'm not quite sure. Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and burn retrograde. Once we do, let's go ahead and double click the Mun. So double left click focuses the Mun. You can see our periapsis is 32. So what we're gonna do is actually just time warp to a point right before them. We're close enough to the retrograde burn that once we catch up, it's not gonna be a big deal. All right, we're gonna go ahead and just hit shift. Go ahead and hit the science because we're in low orbit. Again, you can see it says mare. That doesn't matter. All right. All right, let's go ahead and burn retrograde real quick. And we're going to burn retrograde until we get an apoapsis. There we go. All right. Once we do that, we're going to get really, really close to that periapsis. That way we're not moving the periapsis closer in. All right. Now that it's moved closer in, we're going to get that apoapsis within the, I think it was 250. All right. We're going to go ahead and hit into retrograde and then time warp to point. Time warping to point tends to flip your vehicle. So you can kind of already get it, yep, right there, right into prograde. So if you're in retrograde at the periapsis, if you time warp to point and hit prograde, it usually will flip your vehicle around into prograde right when you need it to. All right, so for the quest, we're going to go into periapsis up a bit. There it is. It was 60,000 and 250,000 for correctly. Go ahead and check. Mun or bust was 2,460. I was close. I said 25. All right, so that's one mission down. Now we're going to get all the other missions. So one small step, land on the surface. First dibs, plant a flag on the mare. Then perfect circle, establish an orbit around Kerbal with an AP and PE each between 99 and 101. This is something we can do on the way back. So tracking station, and we're going to bot back to our vehicle. Click, control, and here we go. Now this step is going to be us landing on the Mun. We actually have leftover delta V, which doesn't always happen. So we're going to go ahead and use that delta V. And we're going to try to get us... So right here, we go ahead and focus the Mun. This dark area is called the mare. This, the center of it, see, there's one here, and there's one here. Those are called mare eyes. And those mare eyes are different science areas. Then you've got the highlands, and then you've got craters as well. And I think one of the ravine areas is right here. So if you land here on the mare eye, you can get the mare eye, the mare, and then you can, I think the ravine is right here. I think this is a ravine science area. So you can kind of get all three, if you do it correctly, with some leftover delta V. And you can also get into the highlands from the ravines as well. So that's 4 spots right there, and I think the ravine is one. I'm not entirely sure. Now, craters would be something like this over here, or these obvious craters. These small ones inside of the mare eye don't count. It still counts as the mare. So one way to line yourself up for where you want to be is what you're going to do is this blue circle, your orbit, you're going to go ahead and get it as a flat line, so it looks like a plane. Then what you're going to do is burn normal or anti-normal. And this is going to push your plane in a different direction. And I'll show you what I mean. It's going to take some time for us to get into normal and anti-normal because we don't have a, what's it called? A stability module. And the stability module basically helps flip your vehicle, and we just don't have one. We have one in our cockpit, but it's not enough force for how big our vehicle actually is. Once we get rid of this leftover delta V, and basically I'm burning normal and anti-normal simply because I have leftover delta. If I didn't have this and I was on my next stage, I wouldn't be doing this. I would just be landing on the Mun, but because we have it, it's more of like a why not. And I can never remember which one is which. I think normal is down and anti-normal is up. So we actually need to go anti-normal for this. So you can watch your vehicle. One thing you do want to watch is the electrical control, but we have these solar panels, and you can see if we right click on them, stellar exposure and energy flow. So we're not losing much energy flow just due to the fact that our vehicle doesn't require much. So now we're going to try to get our orbit set up so that the orbit passes over the eye. And then what we're going to do is burn retrograde until we have a intersection point that's basically, and we're going to go ahead and lower it. So basically our intersection point should be right over here because the moon does rotate as we approach it. And you want to kind of find a point that's in front of where you want to go and essentially catch that point. So what's going to happen is we'll place a point over here. We'll then warp to speed until that point, or warp until that point, until the point beforehand. And then we're just going to kind of catch ourselves and land, hopefully, right on the mare eye. And then from the mare eye, we'll make a short hop into the mare. And then hopefully, if this is a ravine location, a short hop to the ravine location, and then on the highlands, and get 4 different science points all at once. And that's going to get us close to 1,000 science. And then we're also going to be completing some of those missions. So we've already gotten 100 from one mission. We're going to get 300 from landing on the actual mun itself. And then we're going to get, I think it's another 100 from planting a flag on the mare. So we're approaching the anti-normal. You can go ahead and do a slight burn. It's going to help you. Oh, I did go the wrong way. All right, cool. So it is normal. Normal is up, anti-normal is good to know. I always get those two confused. We still have plenty of delta V, so I'm really not. Alright, so we're approaching normal. We can go ahead and do a slight burn just to kind of get it back in line. Because that slight burn will help us to approach it in a safer, quicker manner. And you can see the orbit is changing. It's essentially just rotating on an equal axis. And that's what normal and anti-normal is. Alright. Getting kind of close, just a little bit more, and a little bit more. I just want to be doubly sure that we're getting in the center of the eye for the most part. All right, there we go. And you can see flat plane looks like a singular line. It intersects the eye. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and burn retrograde, and we're going to bring this orbit all the way down right about here. Now I can't make a target on the surface, unfortunately. I can clear target, I can focus, but I can't make a target on the surface of the mun. But we're going to aim for like this little crater right here, and then again we're going to catch ourselves, so we'll kind of show what that means. Unless you can visualize it. Some people can visualize, some people can't. Now they're close to retrograde. We're basically just going to burn at full blast, just because we want to waste off the rest of that delta Z. So go ahead and burn. Full blast, and you can see our intersection point right there. And we're coming up on our stop, so we're going to stop about right here. And we even have more delta V to lose. So we've kind of done almost a perfect launch this time, actually. I'm really happy about where we've gone with our launch. I didn't think it was going to be so perfect. And so you can see we're now a little over, and that's fine. So we're going to go ahead and burn retrograde again. We're going to go ahead and change this to surface, just because we no longer are trying to get an orbit. We're trying to go to the surface. Yeah, so it's not going to spin as... I thought it was going to spin a little faster. It didn't, unfortunately, and that's annoying, but it's perfectly fine. So just waiting for this to get retrograde, and losing... yeah, we need to do it because we're losing too much speed, or we have too much speed. All right, we went ahead and burned that stage. Go ahead and burn landing gear, go to surface, and there we go. So now we're going to start burning off all of the speed. You can see we're doing it kind of soon. I just want to make sure that we have pretty much only vertical and we don't have side to side. And you also want to burn off your speed pretty quick because you want to make sure that you are going to be in a somewhat safe location, or it's a safe descent speed when you're approaching the mun. And what we're going to do is essentially get us to a speed that I think is what I'm going to call acceptable. So probably around 100 meters a second. And then we're going to drop our, how much we're actually burning, how much fuel we're burning, our percentage of fuel burn, or percentage of thrust we're using, essentially. If you right click on this guy, you can actually throttle it back too. So it's thrust limiter, and this is basically how much thrust you're using as well. This is a thrust limiter as well. It's just, you can actually use both of these combined. So you can technically limit this to 50, and then use a limiter on here, and so 50 of 50 will be 25. And the great thing about using that is if, say you have 6 different rockets, or 5 rockets, 4 on the outside, 1 on the inside, and you want to limit the one on the inside, so that way the outside ones are being used first, and then the inside one isn't, you just go ahead and use a thrust limiter, right-click it, limit the thruster, and then it will be good for that. Alright, so we're going to be approaching the edge of the mare plus the highlands, so what we're going to do is we're going to get the mare, the highlands, then we'll jump over to the mare I, and then we'll jump over to the ravine. I wanted to make this easier by doing a mare I, then mare, then ravine, then highlands. I still don't know if that's a ravine. If I have delta V left, we'll check. Because we do need to keep about 1,000 to 1,500 delta V on the way back. So, if I can, I'll hit craters as well. If I could do craters, that'd be great, but I don't think I will, unfortunately. And you can watch this guy will explode pretty soon. Actually, it should be impacting relatively soon. Here it goes. We can watch it impact. And it's gone. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of delta V left over. When I was doing this with only 1 canister, so having 1 canister reduces your weight, but it also reduces how much fuel you have. So there's kind of a good point. You don't want to have something that's super massive trying to land, because no matter how little gravity there is on the actual, planet or moon that you're landing on, if you have something that's gigantic, say like 200 tons or 500 tons, you're still going to have a lot of gravity. And so your delta V will change a lot. You'll need more delta V. So there's a very sweet spot for how much mass you have versus how much delta V that mass gives you for what you're trying to do. Alright, so we've pretty much burned off most of our speed. So I'm going to go ahead and throttle it back. So we're still gaining speed, but we're not getting it much. And then I'm just going to go ahead and speed us up. The reason I'm speeding us up is just to get us close to the surface, because going only 50 meters a second, waiting for the surface at, 16,000 meters takes forever. Gaining a little too much speed, but I'm not worried about 100 meters a second just yet. Now I am, alright, around 10,000 to 8,000 is when I start to worry if we're at 100 meters a second, just to burn it down. I'm just paying attention to how much delta V we have left. I'm going to throttle back again. This time I want us basically losing speed, so I'm going to go ahead and throttle. Yep, so you can see that we're still approaching the ground, but we're losing speed. So I'm not super worried about our velocity right now, because we are losing. And we're only at 50 meters a second, and we can speed it up as much as we want. Now, we're not wasting fuel like this because we are keeping ourselves at a steady speed. There's not much of a difference between coming in and doing a huge burn right before versus keeping a steady burn during the entire time. You're going to be wasting about the same amount of delta V, the same amount of fuel, simply because whether you're burning the entire time or burning all at once, you still have that amount of delta V. So just be wary of that. Doing a steady burn the entire time, or doing a final burn at the end. If you do a steady burn, you at least have more control over what speed you're approaching the planet at. If you do a huge burn at the very end, it's hard to calculate when you need to do that. You basically have to take a derivative of speed, or you'd have to take a derivative of velocity, distance, and time in order to find when you should start your burn. Because if you know your velocity, you know your acceleration, you can figure out your time. And then we're going to approach 5 meters a second is fine. I think these legs can take 10 meters a second. I could be wrong about that. Now you can find a point where your meters a second does not increase and or decrease. 40 is about it. You can get to like 41 and still be fine, but 40 is about it. All right. We're just going to go ahead and touch down like this. Before I touch down, I am going to do a slight throttle increase just to reduce us to about 1 meter a second before touching down. And cut the engines when you're pretty darn close. There we go. When you land I landed a little hard on there, and because of the way the suspension's working, I'm actually getting, oh god, if I can turn off auto suspension. Don't use suspension. It's messing me up because I'm hitting my, see, I'm hitting the thruster. Spring strength. There you go. Alright, there we go. I wanted it to not rest on fuel tank. So now we can go ahead and do our science. Look at this. So 185, 305. We're going to go ahead and drop you out. Go. Now he's going to go ahead and plant the flag, and you're going to do this as first Mun landing. Here, what is his name? We'll just do, here I landed. Here I shall never return. There we go. Boom. And now, as you saw, we can even run another science experiment, and we managed to get a couple things from mission control. So once this science experiment is done, you can see it's a 10-second science experiment. Boom. Even more science. 293, 340. And if we go ahead and get completed reports out of the way, we can see Mun landed mare service samples. All right. So now we're going to go ahead to mission control real quick, and we're going to go ahead and grab these. So it's 300 science from that guy. Thank you, science. And then first dibs. Plant a flag is 100 science. So that's 400 science that we just got just from those. So escaping Kerbal and lonely satellite are two things we can't complete right now. Perfect circle we can complete on the way back, and Munar signal is something we're going to see if we can complete right now. So tracking station. Go back to your vehicle, hit control, double click your Kerbal, turn on your RCS so your Kerbal can fly, hit shift to go upwards, and just go back to the hatch. Press F and then B to board. There we go. Now that got us a ton of science. Now all we have to do is get back to Kerbal and we have all of that science. However, look at this. This little yellow dot is actually going to be the Mun's what is it called? Monument. There's the Mun monument. That's the Mun monument. So now one thing we can do is, because we do have the mare, we are very, very close to the highlands. What I'm going to do is pop over to the highlands, and then if we take a look at our trajectory from where we are to that yellow dot, it takes us right over an eye. So what I'm going to try to do, hopefully, is I'm gonna do a little hop over to here, and then we're gonna hop over to the eye, hopefully, and then we're gonna hop over to this little landing site, and I should have enough Delta V still in order to get ourselves back. At any point, if I feel like I don't have enough Delta V to do this, we will just launch away from the Mun to get all the way back to Kerbal. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look to see which direction we need to go. Then what we're going to do is actually line ourselves up with north. Line ourselves up with north by rotating. Might take some time, but we can do it. If you want, you can kind of go upwards, so you can press shift just a little if you need to turn. Rotate yourself once you get off of planet surface. Rotate. Up, up, up. Come on. Rotate, rotate, rotate. Now, the reason I'm rotating is I'm trying to line myself up with north. That way I know which way I'm always facing. Go. No, 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 no. We're gonna go ahead and throttle back and just land ourselves. That was a bad idea. Bad idea. Nope, nope. Okay, press C. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and launch just because we were in a falling trajectory that we could not catch ourselves from. Not what I wanted to have happen, but Now we're headed towards the highlands. So we're actually headed towards the direction we need. That's what I wanted to do anyways, so I'm not too. Now we can go ahead and line ourselves up with north. That way we know where we're going at all times, and then we go and east. So if you have north up, you want to go east. If you have north down, you want to go, or well, still east, but to the other side. All right. I'm actually just going to go ahead and skip the highlands for now. I said I was going to do it, but I'm more worried about having enough. I'd like to be able to do the Mun Monument in the single setting of grabbing this. So I'm going to skip over this other research opportunity because grabbing that monument would be great. And if I have enough thrust left over, I can still go from the Mun Monument over to these highlands. I'll just skip the eye. So every time you lift off, you're wasting more delta V you'd be using to get back into orbit. So we're going to do the same approach. We're going to make sure that this lines up just a little far off to the side of this. So again, making sure you have about 1,000 to 1,500 delta V. It doesn't take that much delta V to escape the Mun, but you still want to make sure that you have enough to escape the Mun. Don't get your apoapsis too high. 20,000 is probably fine. Depending on your speed, you don't need that much to burn it off, so. Let's go ahead and keep trying to move it over. We're going to go ahead and reduce our thrust so we can pinpoint it in. Now again, if I have enough delta V left over, we will go for the eye and the highlands, but right now I'm more concerned about just getting the monument done in a single go. If I can get all this done in a single go, I'll have close to 1,500 to 2,000 science that we just got right off the bat. We basically started with 0. Be coming back home with plenty to get us pretty much all the way through our second tier. So that would be super, super helpful. Right, let's go ahead and bring it up, rotate up, rotate up, rotate up. Rotate up more. That should be good. All right, we're going to go ahead and cut there. Then we're going to go ahead and rotate into a retrograde. We're going to go through the same process of re-entering again, but this time I'm going to learn from my mistake, and I'm going to time warp to a point that's slightly ahead of where we need to be, or slightly behind, I should say. All right, because last time I went a little too far on top of it, and so when we were entering back into the atmosphere, or back into the orbit, I was a little too far ahead of it. So we didn't make the mare eye. That's why. If I'd made the mare eye, I would have honestly just gone... if I had married that mare eye, I would have gone mare eye, mare, highlands, then tried to get the monument. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and burn off our speed. It's the same process. The only difference is that we're trying to make it exactly on top of this monument. So we can actually see the monument from here. So we can line ourselves up. We can see that we're pretty much lined up perfectly perpendicular, or, well, perpendicular, parallel. Depends on how you look at it. But we're lined up perfectly on top of it. So, going to do is burn, burn, burn. Again, we're going to burn off most of our side-to-side movement and just have our up and down. And I'm going to burn till I'm just a little bit in front of it. So probably right around here. Because we can make small, minute maneuvers to get right over top of it, as long as we're slightly in front of it. So let's go ahead and reduce our thrust. So we're still losing speed, but not at a huge rate because we're still 20,000 above. And then we can go ahead and speed ourselves up. We always do. Go. Continue onwards. Just keep going. And you can see we're pretty much getting right on top of it now. That's what we want. We're not reducing our speed too much, where we can still make the ground. Yep, and you can see we're slightly going to be off course of it, which is perfectly fine. Because again, we can make these small alterations to our course trajectory. what I can actually do is I can pop ourselves over this way. What we're going to do is essentially increase our forward momentum that way. Oops, 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 oops. All right, we're going to go ahead and just decrease all of our thrust. So go and burn all of our speed, and we'll just land and then do a slight hop over. That's fine. Not a big deal. Assuming that I didn't wait too long to reduce our speed, I think I did. I think I waited too long to reduce our speed. I think we're going to crash. It's going to be close. Yeah, I definitely should have reduced our speed a little quicker. Yeah, it's going to be real close. Okay. Wow, we barely caught ourselves. I got lucky. I got extremely lucky on this. Yeah, I got extremely lucky on this. Keep going. We haven't... I can't reduce it yet. We're still approaching the ground way too fast. Okay. Woo! We barely caught ourselves in that one. That really gonna lie. All right. If I go ahead and rotate so that north is perfectly down, what we're going to do is just go ahead and do a small hop over. I'm not even going to touch down. We're in a mare. Yep. I'm not going to touch down. I'm going to go ahead and fly our thing like that. We're just going to go ahead and hit up. Increase the speed that way. Okay. Go ahead and turn off SAS and just go ahead and this. This. God. No. What I want. Not what I want. Not what I want. Turn on SAS. Not moving on me. You. Alright, go ahead and point retrograde. Then, again, going just a little hop over to this Munar signal, which I don't think this is something that Kerbal had, like original Kerbal Space Program. I don't think this had that. I could be wrong. I didn't really play Kerbal Space Program. I've only really played KSP 2 because I really fell in love with the fact that KSP 2 has. I really recently got introduced to KSP. So. Let's go ahead and point up, increase our speed, point towards the monument just a little, increase your speed so that you're actually increasing your speed, and just kind of keep going. Yep. And again, we're just going to do little tiny hops to get where we're going. Little tiny hops. Just burning off as little delta V as we need to get where we're going. Now, I could technically fly over there, like I could EVA over there. The reason I'm not doing that is because I want these science labs to be doing stuff. So, burn off. One thing I am going to do is get us a pretty high trajectory, because what I want us to do, burn off the side momentum. And we can't burn off the side momentum if we're that close to the ground. We have to burn off the side momentum by being higher up, burning it off that way. Gonna cancel it, went upwards, and we should be good to go. Here we go. Ish. Alright, full burst, full burst, full burst, and bring it down. Alright. Just gonna kinda go. Little much. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I made the same mistake I made last time, where I still get the Munar signal, but this is not what I want to have happen. This is not what I want to have happen. Oh boy. And this is all because I just did not get rid of all of the side energy. Okay, so we're gonna go and cut again. Yep, it's because I didn't get rid of that side energy, so I'm also not lined up the way I want to be, which is unfortunate. Want to have, because I know that if I tilt right when I'm looking at my cockpit, that gives me this way, so I can do this and then Z this. Here we go, and then we're gonna put in retrograde. Now we did complete that mission, And I am getting close to the delta V that we need. But again, I want to get the science for this Munar signal, because doing a second launch for a spaceship, it's just not what I want to do. I'd much rather just have one spaceship that does everything I need on the moon and then get back. I'm not going to get all of the research for all of the places, but that's perfectly fine. As long as I get some research for most of the places, that's what. Burnt off all of the side momentum, which is the biggest thing. You have to burn off the side momentum. Straight up and down. So once you're straight up and down, you can just hit up, and then you can just burn. All right. Again, we're just going to burn. Speed it up a little. We're close to the ground. Double time. Again, I'm not super worried about this because we can take 10 meters a second of impact with our legs. I wouldn't want to, but we can. I think I'm still in a mare. Okay. I'm facing this direction. If I point left, left, point left, okay. Down, sideways, still in the mare, not want, using our speed, pointing up, pointing up, using our speed to reduce speed, pointing left, pointing left, pointing left. Again, we're trying to get right over the monument, waiting for this to say research location monument. You have to be kind of close to it. Canceling our upwards momentum and going a little side momentum. All right, we're just going to go ahead and cancel all of them. This is just getting a little much for us, so I'm just going to cancel momentum. We're wasting too much delta V doing this, so if I can't get the science junior, it's fine. I'll just get the actual stuff. It's okay. Not super worried about it. I would like to get it, but it's okay. All right. Yeah, because we're still located in the mare, so I'm going to go ahead and push us forwards and left. Okay. I am going. All right, so we just touched down, but we're pretty close to the monument, so I'm going to go ahead and give us a little bit of a burn upwards, and then we're going to go ahead and get rid of our sideways movement. So we're going to go into a retrograde position to burn off all of this sideways momentum that we have. Then we're hopefully going to just burn pretty much completely down. So let's go ahead and grab that burn real quick, and burn. Burn, 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 burn. And here, point up. Sometimes when you burn retrograde like that, it'll start doing it in circles. So you just want to switch to burning up. Now we went ahead and got it. We got the monument. I'm so happy. Now we can go ahead and get out and let go. And this is a perfect second launch in Kerbal Space Program. I didn't think we were going to have it. I honestly thought this was going to be more difficult than it actually was. Not that it wasn't difficult. It was very difficult, but I didn't think I was going to be able to do this. So this is going to net us close to 900 science. Plus, we just got a ton of science. The Munar signal now gives us 350, and this gives us a perfect second launch. Now, the only thing we had to do for this one is just a probe with a communications antenna above Minimus. But this also works with the Lonely Satellite, which is orbit Kerbal with a probe core antenna and solar panel. We're going to knock out 100 plus 400 in the next perfect launch to Minimus to complete all of our gravity. And then this, 100 on our way back. We already have 908 science. This is going to give us 1,000. We basically started from 0. Plus, we have 900 just from getting our vehicle. Now, we do have to get our vehicle back. That's the thing. We could just recover our Kerbal. That is a thing that you can do currently, is you can just recover your Kerbal. And if I do this, it will grab all of the science. And I'll show you. So I'll recover, and then I'll load back in. So let's go ahead and make a save right here. So I'm going to save this game right here. We'll do this with pre-Kerbal. Right, so we'll do that pre-Kerbal. So go ahead and save. Then I'm going to go ahead and recover just to kind of show you a point. We're going to lose out on that 100 from orbiting Kerbin, but that's fine. I'll show you. So this guy went ahead, and if I do that and just recover him, research and development, you'll see that we have 1,800 science. So that means that we got the 900 from him plus the 900 from all of the different missions that we did. So if you really want to, you can put your Kerbin on the ground and you can just recover him, and he'll be perfectly fine to be recovered. Now, I'm not going to do that because I actually do want to just load in the game, and I want us to come back and complete that other mission, because that's the whole point of this, is to do as many missions as possible in as little launches as possible. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and launch ourselves back towards Kerbin. Now, these videos that I'm doing of like these perfect launches and stuff, now this isn't me doing this for the first time. I have done, I've got my playthrough that I'm doing on my actual playthrough that I'm doing. You can check that out. I'll have a link to it at the end of the video, just to the entire playthrough. And then I'm also testing things out just to make sure that what I'm telling you guys actually works. And so I've tested vehicles on this actual, basically what's a test game for myself, to make sure that they actually work. Now, I'm trying things in my real game, in my playthrough, making sure that they work, knowing that they work, and just having fun doing it. But in this one, I want to give you guys basically just the perfect examples, the perfect flights, and the perfect setups, so you guys can just, if you're stuck trying to get science, you can look at these and be like, okay, well, this is a great way of me getting science from the MUN, or this is a great way of me getting science from this, and this is the easiest way of me getting science. So it's really just to help you guys out in trying to find the easiest ways do what you need to do to get your science, to get yourself out there, and to get yourself exploring the Kerbal system and systems beyond that when the patches come out, and to build colonies. That's gonna be a huge thing, is just getting colony builds and all that stuff. We're gonna get a lot of things set up in my actual playthrough. Things like getting all of my satellites set up around every single planetary system, because you need satellites. That's going to be a thing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a maneuver point, basically just getting ourselves out of urban influence. So do grab it if I can. There we go. And try to use the least amount of fuel possible. Right, there we go. This is what we want. This is going to use 201. We're going to go ahead and point to maneuver. All right, once we're pointing to maneuver, then we're going to go ahead and do the speed up. Now, I'm not too worried about what we're looking like here and how close we are, because there's no atmosphere, so it really doesn't matter. I just wanted to get us into space so I could find a location that would save us the most fuel. Also, if you're wondering, looks like setting up an orbit and then going from orbit into urban orbit is the fastest way. Trying to just point directly at Kerbin and launching yourself into space isn't going to be super useful. This is a much more fuel efficient way of doing it. Here we go. And dialing it back. 2, 1, go. Full burn. Here we are. And you can see it already brought up the moon periapsis quite a bit. So even if we need to cancel it and rescue our guy with another vehicle, we still have him in a stable orbit. So not super worried. Exit. Alright, cool. So now what we're going to do is, I don't think I'm gonna have enough fuel to actually set up the perfect launch. So just grabbing your Kerbin and recovering him probably would be the smartest way of doing this, but we know that we can make it back to Kerbin at least just doing it this way. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that and time warp to the apoapsis point. And the reason you time warp to the apoapsis is because when you're at the apoapsis, that's the easiest way of reducing your periapsis. Like I said, I'm not gonna have enough fuel to reduce our periapsis enough. So there is a trick that you can do. So we're gonna go ahead and do high orbit of Kerbin, which we didn't do. That's gonna give us 1050 science. So there's a way, so if you, I kind of talked about this before, you can use the atmosphere to air brake yourself. So what we can actually do is air brake ourselves so our apoapsis comes down to about 1000, And then we're going to save a bunch of fuel, and we might actually be able to get perfect orbit just like this. So what we're going to do is reduce our periapsis to about 65,000. So nope, that's a little much. All right, go back in the prograde, wasting a little bit of delta V. But what I'm doing is trying to get us that perfect orbit by just air braking ourselves, essentially. So I'll show you what I mean. And it'll be sped up for you guys, so. There we go. All right. So we're going to go ahead and focus on Kerbal, and then what we're going to do is just speed ourselves up. So then you'll watch, once it hits the Kerbal periapsis, what's basically going to happen is that it's going to hit the atmosphere, and it's going to air brake itself on the atmosphere. So use its speed, and you'll watch. So the apoapsis is going to reduce, and it's just going to keep doing this until I get this into about 100,000. Once this is 100,000, I'm then going to go to our apoapsis and increase our periapsis to 100,000. And then, once I get that, I'll increase our periapsis back to 100, or I'll decrease our periapsis back to, so. Okay, and we're finally here. After a little bit of using some of our delta V and a lot of air braking, we're finally at a point where we're going to complete the quest, get the periapsis down to where we need it. So first, we have to take a look at what we're doing. So it's mission control. We're doing the perfect circle. So we're going to do from 99 kilometers and 101 kilometers. So we have, go back to our vehicle. Our apoapsis is 101 and our periapsis is 100. I don't think it's because my apoapsis is technically above 101. It's not working. Let's go ahead and test it out. I also have enough delta V that I can land myself. Pretty sure I have enough. We'll find out. I'm pushing it really close with the 53. I'm going to just add in a little bit extra. See if we can't get that perfect circle completed. That way we can get those research points. There it is. Look at that. And then we're just going to go ahead and full blast this. Bring our periapsis down to below 70. And make our nice controlled descent downwards. And we'll just go ahead and complete the mission. So let's just speed this up. If we get into the atmosphere, it'll bring us down. We're just going to face retrograde, so we're burning off all the stuff behind us, and our command pod will go last. So we're just going to follow this into the atmosphere, and we are going to pretty much leave it here. I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect everything just to be safe. We'll speed it up just so we can get through everything, but I enjoy anybody that watched this video. And if you want to see some other videos, I'm going to be posting some more tips and tricks. I know we've got some more quests coming up. Something to do with satellites. We're going to put a satellite in orbit around Minmus. I've done it in my actual playthrough. If you want to check that out, head over to my channel and check it out. I will also be posting a playlist at the end. I appreciate anybody that stayed and watched the video. If you found it helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Or if you just enjoyed it, and if you want to keep up to date on all of my future videos, anything that I have coming out, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. We're just going to go ahead and follow this guy down into orbit. Not a big deal. It should be safe. Well, hopefully, should be relatively safe. That's pretty much going to end it for this one.